The forbidden technique for soul awakening. There exists a technique so potent, so ancient, that its very existence was veiled behind shadows and silence. Not because it failed to work, but because it awakened the soul too powerfully. Shattering illusions, breaking inner chains, and dissolving the programmed identity that veils our essence. This forbidden method was not just a practice, but a vibrational key. A forgotten path once walked by sages, mystics, and spiritual rebels. Those who touched its fire glimpsed their eternal self, remembered who they truly were, and became impossible to control. That is why, from the earliest empires to modern systems of power, it was buried, its texts hidden, its teachers silenced, and its symbols distorted. The true danger of this technique was never chaos, but sovereignty. It reconnected the soul to its original light, bypassing dogmas and external authorities. As you begin to understand its layers, you realize it was never just a method. It was a sacred rebellion against spiritual amnesia. This technique whispered to the deepest part of being, you are more than your story, more than your name, more than your body. Such knowledge, once kindled, becomes a flame that no lie can extinguish. It illuminates what lies beyond the veil, the realm of energy cosmica, where consciousness remembers its divine origin. Its suppression was methodical. Through centuries, institutions rewrote the narrative. They labeled the technique as dangerous, heretical, or nonsensical. They surrounded it with fear, cloaking it as madness or superstition. But those who dared to search beneath the ruins of forgotten temples and the footnotes of textos prohibidos began to piece together fragments that, when activated with intention, reopened the gates of Alquimia Interior. And in this alchemy, the soul does not transform into something new. It returns to what it always was, radiant, whole, eternal. The technique's design is not mechanical, it's metaphysical. It bypasses the intellect and speaks directly to the sacred architecture of the soul. It uses silence as a mirror, breath as a doorway, and symbols as bridges to higher realms. Its potency lies in how it deconstructs the artificial self, stripping away the identities we borrowed, the fears we inherited, and the beliefs we never questioned. Each layer peeled back reveals a deeper resonance with Sabiduria ancestral, a wisdom not learned, but remembered. And so, as you approach this ancient current of awakening, you must do so not as a student, but as a remembering soul. Because this technique does not give you something you lack, it reactivates what was dormant. It is not a gift from outside, but a stirring from within. And once the veil thins, you begin to sense echoes of other teachings, echoes from civilizations that once guarded this sacred art with devotion. But what were those teachings? What did the ancient ones know that we have forgotten? Sacred teachings from ancient civilizations. Long before modern science attempted to explain consciousness, the ancients were already walking the invisible paths of the soul. Across continents and cultures, threads of a secret doctrine emerge, whispers of practices not meant for the masses, but for the seekers ready to dissolve illusion. In Egypt, beneath the stone gaze of timeless temples, priests initiated souls through sacred death, rituals where the body remained but the consciousness journeyed. It was not metaphor, it was real. These ceremonies opened portals into dimensions where spiritual memory was restored and illumination became a lived reality. In the temples of ancient Greece, the Orphic mysteries held keys few dared to seek, chanting sacred hymns while breathing. In rhythm with the cosmos, initiates entered altered states where the soul could remember its divine descent. Orpheus, the mythic poet, was not merely a legend. He was a keeper of vibrational truth, a guide through the veil of forgetfulness. These rites were not superstition. They were technologies of consciousness, crafted with precision to awaken what lies beneath the surface. Through vibration and silence, the soul broke free from its earthly bindings and tasted the realm of Energia Cosmica. Farther east, the sages of India spoke of Smarana, not remembrance of facts, but remembrance of being. The rishis, those seers of silence, did not teach with scriptures alone, but through presence. In vast forests and still caves, they practiced the art of stillness so profound, it unraveled the very structure of ego. They taught that to know the self, one must unlearn the world. Through detachment, meditation, and sacred breath, the practitioner reached a state where even thought dissolved into pure awareness. This was not belief, it was direct knowing, and it echoed the same truths found across all sacred lands. What unites these traditions is not dogma, but resonance. Each, in their own way, guarded a piece of the same lost technique, methods encoded in rituals, chants, postures, and breath. These were not isolated inventions, but reflections of a deeper, collective knowing, a remembrance that transcends language and geography. Whether in the sands of Egypt, the marble sanctuaries of Greece, or the jungles of Bharat, one message rings clear. The soul has forgotten its source, and the sacred task is to return, to remember. And each tradition, in its brilliance, offered a map home, but these maps were torn, burned, and rewritten by those who feared their power. What remains are fragments, symbols etched in stone, hymns half forgotten, and scrolls marked as heresy. Yet the resonance persists, vibrating beneath the surface of time, calling out to those who can still hear. The question is not whether. The knowledge still exists. It does. The question is, are you ready to follow its echo into the forgotten chambers of your own being? And what happens when you step beyond history into direct experience? The three phases of the technique. The technique is not a single act, but a sacred progression, a triadic unfolding that mirrors the very journey of the soul across lifetimes. It begins in darkness, in the echo chamber of the false self, where borrowed identities speak louder than inner truth. This is the first phase, deprogramming the false self. It is the art of seeing the masks we've inherited from family, culture, trauma, and fear. The false self is not evil, it is a defense. But to awaken, one must recognize the illusion. In ancient practices, initiates would fast, isolate, and silence their minds, not to escape the world, but to witness how much of themselves was never truly theirs. And in that witnessing, the unraveling began. Thoughts lose their grip when you stop believing they are you. Identities lose their power when you observe them as costumes. Beliefs dissolve when you question who implanted them. This deprogramming is not an intellectual process. It is alchemical. It melts the rigid structures of self that block the flow of Energia Cosmica. As each layer crumbles, a deeper silence emerges. A silence not of absence, but of presence. In that silence, something stirs. Not something new, but something ancient, something you've always been. This is the soul beginning to whisper again, now that the noise of the world is being lowered. The second phase is activating the inner sense, the forgotten perception that sees without eyes, hears without ears, and knows without thought. It is accessed through breath, presence, and symbols charged with power. Many ancient traditions encoded sacred geometry, mantras, and mudras, not as superstition, but as vibrational keys to unlock this inner sense. The breath becomes a bridge, guiding consciousness inward. Sacred imagery becomes a mirror, revealing dimensions behind form. This is where Sabadoria Ancestral returns, not from books, but from direct contact with the unseen. Here you are no longer seeking, you are sensing, feeling, remembering, and then comes the final phase, resonance with the soul's true name. This is not a name spoken aloud, but a vibrational frequency unique to your being. It cannot be given to you, it can only be felt. In deep silence, after the false self has dissolved and the inner sense has awakened, this resonance emerges. It sings through the bones, echoes in the heart, and aligns the entire energy body. Ancient mystics spoke of the secret name of the soul, known only to the divine. To speak it aloud is to collapse illusion, to embody truth, to activate the alchemia interior that transforms awareness into light. You become your name, not the one given by others, but the one etched in eternity. These three phases are not linear. They spiral, repeat, deepen. Each breath is a new opportunity to deprogram, to activate, to resonate. The process is not a destination, but a rhythm, a dance between forgetting and remembering. And when you live in this rhythm, something shifts. You no longer chase enlightenment. You embody it. But how does this ancient rhythm echo through daily life? How can such mystical stages merge with the mundane rhythms of your world? Living the technique in daily life, the sacred is not confined to temples or rituals. It breathes within every moment. Once the technique is awakened, its true test begins. Not in isolated meditation, but in daily life. Here lies the greatest secret. Your life is the altar and your presence is the offering. To live the technique is to walk as a soul disguised in human routine, remembering with each step that the mundane hides the divine. You rise not as an ego chasing perfection, but as consciousness embodying remembrance. Every action becomes intentional. Every word a vibration, every silence a sacred space, and so the path once hidden becomes the path you walk. Begin with active silence, not the absence of noise, but the fullness of awareness. In the chaos of modern existence, silence becomes rebellion. It is in those quiet gaps, between thoughts, between breaths, between impulses, that the soul speaks. To hear it, one must listen without agenda. A simple cup of tea sipped in stillness becomes a portal. A conversation held without ego becomes communion. The technique teaches you to slow down, not in body, but in perception. This is how Energia Cosmica enters, not through effort, but through presence. You are no longer reacting to life. You are revealing it. Then turn your routine into ritual. Ancient sages did not separate spiritual practice from life. They wove them together. Brushing your hair, walking through a doorway, preparing a meal, each becomes sacred when performed with intention. The hands no longer move automatically. They transmit awareness. The breath no longer passes unnoticed. It becomes a chant. You are no longer in the world. You are shaping it, moment by moment. This is the core of Alchemia Interior, transforming repetition into revelation. The divine doesn't descend from the sky. It awakens from within your presence. Guard your inner diet just as carefully as your outer one. What you consume mentally and emotionally either nourishes or pollutes your field. The technique requires vigilance, choosing carefully the stories you believe, the emotions you dwell in, and the environments you absorb. Words carry frequency, thoughts build architecture. Every input shapes your inner temple. The ancients fasted not only from food, but from distraction and distortion. This is the forgotten discipline of purification, not to punish, but to clarify, to make space for remembrance. Because only in clarity can the resonance of your soul be truly heard. And finally, speak from your inner truth, not from borrowed beliefs, not from conditioned fear, but from the vibration of your knowing. When your voice aligns with your soul, it becomes a spell, not of manipulation, but of revelation. Each word you speak carries a signature. Each sentence either awakens or sedates. Living the technique means speaking as one who remembers, even if others do not. It means being a light in a world addicted to shadows. But what does it mean to remember so deeply that forgetting becomes impossible? What happens when remembrance is no longer a concept, but a state of being? Remembering as a path, not a concept. To remember who you are is not a task to complete, but a frequency to inhabit. It is not about gathering information, but shedding layers. The truth of your being is not something you must find. It is something you must re-feel. The forbidden technique does not teach you facts. It tunes your field to the vibration of eternal self. In that resonance, something ancient awakens, a pulse older than time, a recognition beyond thought, and once it begins, it cannot be reversed. It is not enlightenment, it is remembrance. And remembrance is not a peak experience, it is a path. This path walks through every emotion, every shadow, every forgotten wound. Remembering does not bypass pain, it transforms it. It reveals the sacred purpose behind every scar. Fear begins to dissolve, not because danger disappears, but because the illusion of separation fades. When the soul remembers, it sees not enemies, but mirrors. Not obstacles, but initiations. Life stops happening to you and begins to move through you, and in that shift, the masks drop. The false roles fall. What remains is silence, spaciousness, and a growing clarity that you are more than your past, more than your story. You are the light behind the script. This shift affects everything. Perception widens. The world, once seen as random and chaotic, becomes symbolic, interconnected, purposeful. You begin to read reality like a sacred text. Each event, each person, each challenge becomes a passage in your soul's unfolding. You no longer live to survive, you live to embody truth. The memories that surface are not of this life alone. They come from beyond the veil, echoes from lifetimes, fragments of other existences, flickers of the infinite journey your consciousness has traveled. These memories do not weigh you down, they liberate you. As the remembering deepens, time itself begins to lose grip. The soul does not live in hours or years, it lives in presence. The future becomes less about planning, more about alignment. The past becomes less about regret, more about integration. Every moment becomes a mirror, and you walk as one who sees the unseen. This is the heart of Illuminação Espiritual, not escaping the world, but embodying your eternal self within it. The outer life may look the same, but inside, everything has changed. You are now guided by a compass no one can see, but everyone can feel. And so, remembering becomes your new orientation, not an event, but a way of being. You are not trying to become anything. You are simply allowing what has always been to re-emerge. The forbidden technique was never truly forbidden. It was just forgotten. But now that you know, now that you remember, the question remains, what will you do with this truth? Will you return to the comfort of forgetfulness, or will you step fully into the mystery of remembrance? Because once the soul remembers, nothing can ever be the same again. Have you ever felt like something deep within you is asleep, waiting, watching, remembering? What if I told you that an ancient technique exists, one so powerful that it was hidden for centuries, forbidden? Not because it failed, but because it awakened the soul too completely. Why did the wisest civilizations revere this method while modern systems erased it from our awareness? Today, you are not here by accident. The moment your eyes landed on this video, a silent part of you responded. A part that knows the truth, cannot stay buried forever. What you are about to discover is not a lesson, it is a remembrance, a doorway, a return. Hidden within forgotten texts, mystic rituals, and sacred breath lies a technique designed to dissolve illusion and awaken your eternal self. And it has been waiting for you. In this journey, we will unveil the suppressed teachings of ancient Egypt, Greece, and India, civilizations that held the keys to spiritual memory and cosmic alignment. You'll walk through the 3 phases of soul activation, learn how to embody this power in everyday life, and realize that remembering is not something you learn, it is something you become. So open your heart, and clear your mind. Because this isn't just information, it's initiation. And once you begin this path, nothing will ever feel ordinary again. The only question is, are you ready to remember who you really are? If you feel the pull of this ancient truth, like this video, share it with someone whose soul is stirring, and subscribe for more sacred revelations. Let's begin. Now that you've walked through the echoes of ancient knowledge and touched the edge of your soul's forgotten memory, ask yourself, what else has been hidden from you? What more lies buried beneath layers of conditioning, waiting for the light of your awareness? This isn't the end of your journey, it's the beginning of a deeper unfolding, one that invites you to remember, not with your mind, but with your entire being. So tell me, what part of you awakened while watching this? What truth resonated beyond words? Share your reflections in the comments. I read them all. And if you feel this message could ignite someone else's remembrance, share this video with them. Don't forget to subscribe so we can continue unveiling the mysteries together. And if you're ready to go even deeper, watch the next video appearing now on your screen, because the universe never reveals anything to you by accident.